the data suggests that infrastructure can consume 60 to 80% of total AI budgets, and around 80 to 85% of organizations misestimate AI costs by more than 10 to 25%. That's the kind of data that has been shared. So, Gayatri, from your perspective, what if the infrastructure forecast has not been taken into consideration? What are the other three cost line items that never appear in POC budgets, but end up dominating production P&Ls?
First of all, I'm again saying enterprises. I'm talking about IT industry. Okay, these two, because I think IT industry set up the larger enterprises for success in terms of digitization, their digitization journey and whatnot. So for all of us, India being a very price sensitive market, right? For if you're building for India, we definitely have to be extremely cost conscious about. Not that for others we shouldn't be. India is even more, so we need to tighten the purse string. So usually, what gets missed out? Okay, I've been talking to some of my customers also about this. We miss out largely on our retraining of people, because your customer says it's all AI, so why should I pay your developer so much? I have got the developer to learn Python and machine learning and whatnot, all the fancy things about AI. I've invested in him. So what he was drawing, if he was drawing, let's say 5 lakhs per annum Indian rupees, now I have to pay him at least 10 lakhs to retain him here. Right? It's 100% cost up. So if I'm in business to make profits, I'm not here for charity. So very clearly, Mr. Customer, who's going to bear this cost? We will not be able to use a magic wand and bring everything to you in a rapid fashion. We will definitely have to go through the motions to get your businesses through the AI engine. And for that, I need these people who have now become more costly because I've invested in them. So this part in the estimation doesn't figure out. As a matter of fact, there is no estimation standard for AI projects, right?
Right.
The only difference that I want to bring to our audience is in the typical SDLC, it was requirements, design, blah, 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 testing. But now you would have seen data came during testing. We had a database, we had a model, but there was no data in it. We went and put data after coding. Flip the whole thing around. Now you need data to start the process, right? So our thinking has to be rewired, our designing has to be rewired, and it means there is a lot of learning that has to go into this process, and hence estimation is going to be different.
Absolutely.
Right? So some of the costs that we are very clearly missing, infrastructure may still be okay, because we have anyway from our 2010, 2014, $50 billion industry, cloud services has become a 800 billion industry in 26, right? Look at the growth. Now, with that kind of growth when it comes to infrastructure services, I think we can still manage that even without GPUs. I mean, if you've read some of these, even without GPUs, with just our laptops, we can still do great things. So while infrastructure may still not be that kind of a shock for organizations taking up this journey, I think what really becomes a bigger cost is the engineers again. Again, we are talking people, right? It is going to result in higher people costs. There are people who have used auto generation tools, AI tools for coding, but they are not able to do enterprise grade. And the kind of debugging that they have to do and spend their midnight oils increased. So it's all becoming even more, because right now it's still the formative years in enterprises. We should acknowledge that fact. AI is not a magic thing, like I said. So my view comes to cost. Training is going to be a huge cost. People is going to be a huge cost. Let's not take our eyes away from estimation from a data point of view is also going to be huge cost. You're going to pay for this data, right? These are things that don't get discussed at all, as I see in many forums.
Yeah, these are some of the elements which are invisible in most of the POC.
Right.
POC
So,
that they
Vishendra,
yeah.
I would just like to add from an enterprise IT side, okay?
Sure.
Because you talked about infrastructure cost surprises. So I'd share one experience. We used computer vision API to automatically tag images and store them on cloud Azure. Okay, so we started with 5,000 images, and very quickly, of course, there is this principle that the more images you feed, the more intelligent the machine learning becomes. So it gained the accuracy of 95, 96%, and then up to 97, 98 in second year. and 98.5 in third year. Okay, however, there was one surprise because you asked about the surprise. In infrastructure cost, there is one which is CapEx cost and another which is OpEx cost. So suddenly we realized in year three that our cost of Azure storage is going way beyond the budgets and it just goes on increasing. And the issue was we were told by the business that everything they need on the hot storage. Okay, because there is a way, there are tools which can optimize Azure cost, cloud cost, etc. But then there is still that issue. So data OpEx cost is something where we actually couldn't estimate how much would it be. So then if at all we have to share the learning from that, then maybe even that could form part of the design principle where, okay, I'll grow my data with this way. I will do the housekeeping. I will also make sure that this is the hot storage, this is the cold storage, and so on and so forth. Because whether or not, more or less, everybody is actually using cloud now. So
Yeah.
that's just one experience I wanted to share.
Thank you, Praveen. In fact, you talked about this cloud and also data. In fact, I was also studying in one of the article. I think there's a study which has been shared by Deloitte, and they were also talking about these costs, balancing these costs, and there's some numbers that have been worked out by some other individual, and they were saying the cloud cost is going to be much more as compared to the on-premise cost
Yeah,
for moving forward because the data consumption
Yes,
or the
it
token
is.
consumption is very
in
high
fact,
from cloud
Yeah.
in
perspective,
fact,
and that has
in fact,
not
they
been
say,
forecasted
yeah, yeah.
by the startups.
In fact, as a real practitioner, I have lost the count of number of times I have faced by finance committees to explain why this cost is going way over the budget. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would refrain from making very provocative comments here. But yes, that's the worry. And there is an interesting conversation happening on how to address that worry. We'll talk about it.
Thank you. Thanks, Praveen. GD, I'll come back to you again. You talked about Indian services companies, and these services companies. There are many in India, not that many product companies, but we have more services company. And these services companies actually face a harder challenge than product companies because they can't just build one internal tool. They have to cater to hundreds of client contexts. So, how does this services reality explore the cost and infrastructure forecast compared to a standard product company?
I think this is where what I said about the human intervention from a strategy and a leadership point of view plays a very
Hmm.
big role. It is a very complex situation. So for my internal company needs, let's say I've gone with Copilot, but my customer wants a Grok, or my customer wants to be on Cloud or whatever else is available there, Gemini. So from a Gen AI point of view, where I'm going to be using some of these strong tools to kind of make the customer's organization AI enabled. Obviously, the customer bears the cost, right? There is no way that so for my company, for advice, for example, I'm going to standardize my infrastructure. I'm going to standardize what my mail server is going to be. So everything is standardized, like how my AI engine will also be standardized. I will not let my employees work on anything that they want. Obviously, I will apply the firewall there. Now, many companies have already done this. Okay, they've standardized on some platform and they have asked their teams to use that, and in fact they've ring-fenced it very well. There are ways to do all of this. People may have read all this, so this is taken care. But when it comes to the real challenge, where your customers, training also is a challenge, and using your customers environment to so to that extent the team has to be able to advise them which is the right approach. One of my customers is using something else instead of a standard stuff. So I'm saying, why don't you go for an enterprise suite of products? So this is where people who are experienced, who've been in the business, who know which is easy on the purse of the customer. That has to be your thinking hat, right? You can't
Yeah.
just all the costs. You should be able to give them the right kind of advice to say what they should be doing to keep their costs also low. Whatever said and then in the interim, the next 6 months, 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, the cost will skyrocket Because on one end you're trying AI, the other end your people have to be there to balance the business. Maybe in
Exactly.
pockets you can get some advantages, but it won't be a huge ROI or a huge saving.
Hmm.
After 2 years, obviously things will be, but it is too far. And someone said AI is moving so fast, we can't even predict what will happen next month,
Hmm.
right? And all the geopolitical issues adding on to that. So, safer to say that don't expect anything immediately as an ROI. From a services point of view, advise your customers to go easy and not be greedy for bottom lines right away. Everybody wants bottom lines, right? All shareholders want bottom lines. But with
Correct.
AI, do it very measured, and services industry should start doing a little bit more investment on R&D, which I think is a suggestion.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. And R&D should be a continuous process, especially in the services companies. Uh,
Yep.
Arun, with this scenario, if we look at build versus buy economics, and the data shows 2:1 success advantage for vendor partnership or internal builds, and build costs more while taking longer. So when does building actually make economic sense for an enterprise, and what scale or strategic advantage justifies paying more and waiting longer?
Okay, good question and a pertinent one for that matter. Uh, Build versus buy is rather a question that you should look at it what is available as commodity and what is needed for you as a strategic edge for you to progress your business or to take advantage.
Hmm.
Okay, so most of the AI models that are available today are built for generic use, which means it is general intelligence. Now, do I want to replicate that entire thing again within my organization? I don't think so. I don't think we should ever spend that kind of time, effort, energy, money in doing that. So, whatever general intelligence is available, whatever the model, it could be, Copilot or Perplexity or Claude or whatever else you're using. Again, usage specific, which is best for your use. You use that for general intelligence, but you have your own specific knowledge base from your own data sets that you have. That
Hmm.
is what you would use to build over and above this as a layer above this general intelligence to give you the right build. So, generally speaking, I would say use what is available. That is the fastest way of handling it. But as you grow your AI practice into the organization, start looking at your internal data, clean it up,
Hmm.
okay, because I know for a fact, and I know a lot of the audience who are in the services or within the organizations who are looking at this will know that how clean your data structure data systems are. So once you have attained decent cleanliness in your data systems, you build over it,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
that's where your strategic advantage is.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's a combined effort. It's a combination. You start with generic, so you get your general stuff done. You are using AI. You're not running away from it, and you're not
Hmm.
waiting for yourself to build. But as
Hmm.
you're using this, you build. You clean up your data. You bring your data sets up to speed. Again, if you look at, say, a hospital environment, they have some specific stuff. If you look at supply chain organizations, they have a very specific knowledge base that they would have within their organizations. Uh, Look at what Asian Paint has done with its data. It's maintained a
Hmm.
clean data set. Now, if you put intelligence over it, it's doing magic. Okay.
Correct.
Similarly, so that's the understanding that I have, and I would say build what is necessary for you and for from your organization perspective. Use everything else.
Yeah, makes sense, Arun. And that's a core competitive mode. If you have that majority in terms of your data and AI, then you can use as your core competitive mode, and you can amortize high fixed costs over large long-term usage.
Yeah. So
Um,
I just like to add just a single line for everyone to remember.
yeah,
Build only where you need to own decisions and accountability. Everywhere else, buy.
it makes sense. Let me also quickly pivot to from build versus buy to a giant versus focused approach that we should be having in terms of AI moving forward. And this is more like a this has been talked a lot within the Indian context. But is the real economics win for Indian enterprises in building small language models trained on specific domains like Indian agriculture, finance, law, health, rather than buying expensive generic LLM APIs? There's a question uh, to all panelists.
Sorry,
So
I'm not sure I followed the question. Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry, there's a
The-
break in your voice.
yeah. So the question is, if we talk about giant versus focused LLMs, is the real economic win for Indian enterprises is in building small language models trained on specific domains like Indian agriculture, finance, or law, rather than buying expensive generic LLM APIs?
so
Is
can
that
I start on the answer and then others can follow, because it kind of falls into the line of what I was talking of.
sure?
Okay. So uh, there are specific areas that are pretty much unique to India. So if you look
Hmm,
at agriculture, the land, the soil patterns, the rain systems, the kind of crops that we have been traditionally growing, all of that is very unique. So building there, building data sets there, and building intelligence there makes a lot of sense. India has the largest railway network systems.
hmm,
So when a supply chain industry, wants to build intelligence out of that network and the everything around that, it makes a lot of sense because that's unique to India.
hmm,
From a regulatory law perspective, I think there is a uh, you could generally the laws of the land, majorly remain the same in terms of the context, but specifics are unique to each country and each district or whatever else. So again, a lot of the places where there is regulatory requirement, where it is unique to the local environment, I
hmm.
think we should build, and that's where our unique advantage will be.
Thank you, Arun. Yeah, that has been actually recommended by various organizations as well, especially where should India focus on, and SLM is one of the area that they are kind of directing towards. Let me quickly move to segment two. We are already crossed 60 minutes. And I would, if we have any questions, more questions coming from the audience, do share that with us quickly so that we can quickly pick it up and take it forward from here. Uh, but I'll quickly go through the production deployment patterns, which is part of the breakthrough blueprint. And if you look at the proven deployment patterns that avoid pilot purgatory, which is incremental envelope, start with single workflow, expand with validation gates, shadow production, run AI parallel to existing systems, validate without disruption, and phased federation, prove in one department, then expand. So organizations that scale step by step tend to succeed, while big bang transformation usually fail. So Arun, from your perspective, if we look at these three deployment patterns that has been shared by industry research, which one would you recommend? Make sense for these POCs to kind of focus on.
Uh, so there are so the shadow method is the one that works best. Now there is a fallout to it in terms of how it is presented when we are talking to the CFOs and stuff like that. We'll come to that later. But
Mm,
for any enterprise rollouts that you would work on, okay, we do not look at a big bang rollout where one is shut down, the other is just switched on.
mm,
It is a phased mechanism. The old systems are still running, the new systems are also running, and as and when the new systems are confirmed to be as good as it was in the new old systems, we slowly move people onto it. So the shadow network always works. It is always the smoothest. It is always the cleanest. And again, going back to the earlier question of the various gaps, so the learning gap is addressed, that the trust gap is addressed, the the process gap is addressed, and hence the finance gap is also addressed.
Correct. Yeah. And this,
Yeah,
framing shadow production can act as a temporary insurance that avoids
absolutely,
multi-million-dollar failures and
absolutely.
reputational
So
risk.
absolutely.
Praveen, quickly, if we look at the foundation workflows and governance, and if we look at in the context of say evolving DPDP Act or other compliances, that has to be taken into accountability, which are actually not non-negotiable. So, how do you balance the innovation need to break things with the regulatory need to be accountable for AI output?
Sure. In fact, and I would try and keep the answer crisp because I'm sensitive of the time. But
Yeah.
very, fundamentally, I will make 2, 3 points. Shweta, let's first understand that part of the governance or controls are non-negotiable, like the DPDP Act. Okay, some of the GDPR related provisions. This is non-negotiable. I would not want to frame it as whether it is governance versus innovation. It has to be innovation with governance. Okay, and basically this particular aspect is very beautifully captured by a Gartner model. They call it AI sandwich. Okay, so what they recommend is you have the bottom layer, which is a very well defined clean data as well as controls by design. In the middle, there is AI model, and on the top layer, there is human in the loop. So while the innovation is happening in the middle layer, okay, AI is not running unchecked. Okay, it is basically enabled by the data and controls below, as well as the responsibility for outcome by the human at the top. So therefore, the governance is not going to be any deterrent to innovation or progress or scaling, but only if it is retrospectively tried to fit in on a just for the sake of it, then it is going to be a challenge. Okay, so I would keep it at that, but we can of course continue a dialogue on comments and questions on the LinkedIn thread also.
Yeah, this governance and innovation is always, two different side of the coins, and sometimes, you need to map both the sides. So kind of
Yeah.
take it forward. There's a comment and a question which has come from Prashant. One of the question is, should AI be a top-down, like having AI strategy group that identifies projects and drives team to, or is it bottom up where everyone gets trained and invite everyone to bring projects and build? Do some industries better for bottom up and some for top down? Gayatri, you would like to take a.
Yeah, this is interesting. Um, so the leaders definitely have to understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? So it has to be both ways. That's the answer. Because people on the ground, so you take any industry, right? Pharmaceuticals, or you take drug discovery or agriculture. I think people on the ground who are really working, they understand their pain points very well. So when you give them a chance to say what could be probably passed on to AI, they will probably come up with brilliant suggestions, right? So they definitely need to be influencing the decisions, but how much will it take, how long will it take, what kind of impact on the organization and the society as a whole, the leader in the mix will have to decide that. So the response is, while reality comes from the bottom, practicality of making it happen should come from the top. That's my response, Vish.
Thank you, GD.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'll just add one sentence there.
yeah.
Okay, and I agree with that. It cannot be either bottoms up or top down. It should not be looked upon as a science project, some kind of an innovation R&D, or it should not be driven as a compliance exercise, but it should also factor the ground realities, experiences, and challenges. So it has to be combined effort. I would leave it at that.
Thank you. Thanks, Praveen. There's another question that has actually been shared on LinkedIn, and this question was from Dimitro um, Nasiro. Great insights. Thank you. How do you think organizations can effectively balance investing in AI infrastructure versus refining existing workflows? So, any
Right. So
response?
I will just
So
quickly try and respond. Others can, sorry, Arun, and then you can add. I would say, and Arun, please feel free to add, that we talked about the gaps, etc., learning and workflow gap. So, in continuation for that, one suggestion is, refining workflow is basically if you're learning and identifying the gaps and making sure the process is right, and based on that, you can scale the investments in infrastructure. That so there it's more like a sequencing. That's one suggestion, but Arun, feel free to add your point of view.
boss, you just voiced what I wanted to say, that
So,
there is, you only sequence it. There is no other way out. Your workflow come first. You improve your workflow. You clean out your workflow as much as possible, and AI then works magic on it. Okay, and when you do that, your infrastructure processes will follow. So you have to look at it that way only. There is no other way out, at least as far as I see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Arun. So, all right, let me wrap this up now as we already exceeded our time. But there are four things that you should certainly take note of, and of course, in this conversation, you might have taken your notes. But the recording will be available, and you can watch this recording at your convenience. So the four things are: one is business problem first, not technology first. Two, scale in steps, not big bang shadow production. Three, build governance in from day one, not as a checkbox after. Four, measure relentlessly, even though if you have not defined ROI, it could be a return on intelligence, but move from fun to do projects to purpose driven outcomes. There's a playbook, and the 5% I believe follows it, and the 95% don't. But yeah, let's before I wrap up, before I conclude further, uh, I'll also talk about the next problem, which is you finally get AI to work, you scale it, now you need to sell it, and suddenly everything breaks. When you look at AI, it's everywhere, but distribution strategy is not. Demos create friction, pilots challenged by ROI, trials have no commitments, channels misalign from sales-led motions to partnership, so whatnot.